And then I looked at the numbers and I realized that we had an economic vacancy, break-even vacancy.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Gentle Art of Crushing It show, where we focus on learning and sharing with our listeners all there is to know about how to create success in our lives. This show stands on the shoulders of giants. Our mission is to empower and inspire our listeners to create the life of their dreams whilst having a blast in the process. Let's celebrate life together. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the Gentle Art of Crushing It show. I am your host, Marta, and I have a wonderful guest with us today. I am so excited to introduce Mandy McAllister. She is a badass woman who is a multifamily real estate investor. She has healthcare in her background, but recently actually transitioned to real estate investing full time. And so no more W-2. And she's got interesting things up her sleeve. So I want to hand it over to her for her to do a proper bio for herself and to tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are today? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Oh, hi. I'm very excited to be here. This has been kind of a long time coming. Thank you so much for having me. I am a farm kid from small town Illinois who wanted to play volleyball in college, so I followed a scholarship to a little school in Georgia called Mercer, and then moved to Chicago the day after graduation. Got involved at the Board of Trade through my master's degree in economics, and then got into medical device sales. And after a number of years of realizing that my quota continued to reset, like every single year. Like if I grew by 100%, the next year to make the same money, I got to grow by 100% again. And you're chasing your tail if that's the case. You can't really build anything that you are going to continue to be able to grow on as time goes on. So I found a ton of podcasts and a ton of learning, and ended up, by the time I was 35, investing in real estate, about a fourplex. Even though I had been originally interested in multifamily investing or investing in general at the age of 19. So a lot of inaction in that time, and ended up taking out a fourplex, which led to a sixplex. Yeah.
Nice. Sorry, go on.
No problem. So it just kind of moved from one thing into another, and ended up getting into larger multifamily because I figured out the debt structures are a lot better, and I think everything kind of goes back to the debt you can get. And then I realized, oh wait, this is a math problem. Like enough cash flow comes in, at some point I get to leave my day job. Like that, enough money to live on happens, So I did the math, and then, within a couple of years was able to get cash flow to a place that August of 2021, I left the world of medical device and have been full-time investor ever since.
Okay, how liberating is that feeling when you pivot to full-time investing and not have to rely on a day job?
I think the bigger liberation feeling happened when I had just won a President's Club. And if you're in sales, you realize that once you knock it out of the park, the next year's number is going to be so much further from attainable that, if you're ever going to miss a number, it's after a really good year, So I was not hitting my number, and my boss told me, you just got to look deeper. You got to look at the patient information before you're allowed to. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. That's illegal. That's not okay. So I was able to say no, even though I was a brand new single mom and I had maybe $3,000 cash flow coming in. I was able to say, no, bro, I'm not going to do that. That's not cool. I'm not going to do that, because I knew that my mortgage would be paid. I knew that my son would be fed. That was liberating. Getting to $10,000 a month, that was just I realized it works result of employing a plan that works.
Yeah. Amazing. So I know you have a lot up your real estate portfolio sleeve. I do want to ask, because you have a recent thing an announcement that we would love to have folks hear about. So tell us the latest happening in Mandy McAllister world and what you're going to be up to.
Yeah. So when I was diving into this like entrepreneurial journey by myself, you end up in a silo. And like you're used to the getting to talk with someone about how would you handle this customer or this deal or this approach. And you don't get that when you're a solopreneur. And I sought out kind of a sisterhood of other women who were very high powered, badass, really making stuff happen in whatever their realm was. And I found a group called GoBundace Women and ended up joining in 2020-ish. And we three of us were able to acquire the women's division, and I have the opportunity of serving as CEO. So I get a chance to lead this group of women that matter to me so much, that have been the no BS greatest catalyst in my entrepreneurial journey, being next to other women doing big things. And I get the chance to, take it to the next level.
That is so amazing. First of all, congratulations, all caps. And I'm so happy for you. And I think you're like the perfect person to lead a group like that. Tell us a little bit about, I know you're probably just ramping up and drinking from the fire hose, but any thoughts of like vision for the future for this group?
Oh my gosh, we are already, there's so much value, collective genius right under our noses that, one of the things that I'm doing in my first 90 days, like I sent a message from the CEO out to everybody of here are my big things that we will accomplish in the first 90 days. One of those things was, having an individual conversation. We're lucky that we only have, 125-ish elite members right now. So I get a chance to connect with everybody and figure out what is your pain point in your business or your life, and how can we kind of catalog that, and then, make sure that we also understand your superpowers so that we're making the appropriate introductions. So that is a big thing that's happening, and just kind of removing some redundancy from a couple of systems, because man, I've read a lot of SOP documents, and they've done such a good job like ramping this up. It's just a different set of eyes is always good news to a business, So excited to add value and really kind of highlight the things that have always been right under our noses.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I know that's how you and I met, is through a GoBundance connection and networking, and I'm excited to join the group here shortly. Awesome. Well, congratulations again. I can't wait to see what you've got up your sleeve in 2023 and beyond with respect to GoBundance. I want to dive into a little bit more into your real estate journey. If you can kind of tell the audience like how you got into it, what was the scariest thing, and really scaling. I mean, you've had a significant success in scaling very, very quickly. So say a little bit more about that.
Sure. I mean, I feel like the analysis paralysis, the am I good enough or are they way smarter than me thing that like everybody feels, but I think is like an extra flavor for women, especially high achieving women that want to be the perfect little girl. And, you have to be willing to make mistakes if you're going to go do something new. You have to be willing to fail if you're going to swing this big, right? For me, there were kind of two spots that I felt a lot of fear that I had to overcome. The first was my first acquisition, buying that fourplex that, Marta, it was $120,000 for a fourplex, and I was scared to death. And I had underwritten it 7,000 different ways and ended up just having a conversation with someone who had done that type of deal before and said, oh yeah, that sounds great. I would do that every day. And I thought, oh, well, maybe I do know what I'm talking about. And then took a risk on myself and realized that it was just it was a bet I was basically betting a penny that I would make $1. And that's exactly what happened with that asset, right? But once I got pretty comfortable doing a fourplex and a sixplex, and like that's where my growth was at, like was in those type of properties, the type of loans that you can get on those, you can only get 10 Fannie Freddie normal residential loans. So I had to do something different. And I learned about the type of debt that you can take down when you're willing to borrow at least $1 million. Seems like a whole lot, but if you're going to you can get a government-backed loan that's incredible terms, that's non-recourse, so you're not personally liable if you're able to, meet all these other criteria. So what I did is I locked arms with a couple other investors, and then another place where fear set in is like, even though I was comfortable with the 4s and the 6s, like your girl had never done a 53 unit,
Wow. That's a
and
big jump.
that next leap into it is, right? But I had, a couple of partners, and, the problem kind of arose because it was the beginning of COVID, right? Like we went under contract in like June of 2020, and then we closed in roughly September of 2020. And I was just scared to death that like, oh my God, I'm going to be homeless and penniless and live under a bridge, and my son's not going to be able to eat. And it's like, right, like that stuff goes through your mind when you're going to start, like, even though you
Yeah.
conquered whatever fear thing and you get comfortable with something, whatever next leap you go to take, like, understand that a new set of fear-based things will take hold. Like, and it's just a new thing, a muscle that you've got to continue to learn how to flex, right? So I boiled it back, right? Like I really had been like reading a lot of Stoic philosophy at the time, and realized that like, okay, I'm not actually going to be homeless and penniless under a bridge with my son. Like, what is the actual worst case scenario? And then I looked at the numbers, and I realized that we had an economic vacancy, break even vacancy. So basically we'd be able to pay all of our bills if only 65% or something of the property was paying. It was like 45% economic vacancy we could withstand and still pay all of our bills. That is a little bonkers, right? So I started thinking, okay, worst case scenario is we start not being able to pay our bills, right? Now, how many of my tenants have jobs that are at risk because of this pandemic that we don't know anything about because it's September of 2020, right? Like you saw people losing their jobs. Like, let's put truth to the problem. The more truth you put to any problem, the easier it is to solve that problem. So I looked at it was bartenders and manicurists and people who had these service-y type jobs were losing their jobs. Largely nurses and sales reps and like tech folks kept their jobs. So I just went back to the applications and said, okay, at-risk job, not at-risk job, not at-risk job, right? And found 5 jobs that I had kind of question marks about for our tenants, which is 10%, not 45% of our population. So that gave me the comfort that, okay, this risk is worth taking. I can mitigate an actual worst case scenario.
Wow. That is so amazing. I love your analytical brain, and just put truth to the problem, like you said, is like just look at the facts and don't create a story in your mind about something that may or may not even exist. That's awesome. Okay,
Well,
so
you can always figure out how to put truth to it so that you can like correct that story. Because that story might be true. You just got to put truth to it to know for sure.
yeah, that's great advice. So wow, so you had your first big investment during COVID, which is scary in itself. What came after that?
After that, a similar piece of that group, one of my business partners found what was a 47 unit that a friend of his who was also a developer was looking to do but didn't have the liquidity to do it. So we found some folks who, a total of 5 of us, bought a 47 unit out of receivership. Receivership is basically like, if you haven't heard of it, it's basically like foreclosure for bigger stuff, and you have to get judge approval. So we bought out of receivership a 47 unit that had, been condemned basically, and took 47 units down to 38 larger units, completely gutted it to the studs. Our developer partner just knocked it out of the park. So we were able to, buy that, put a bunch of money into it, and then it's basically the BRRRR strategy on steroids, right? So then we refinance with permanent debt, that non-recourse Fannie Mae permanent debt. And actually that refi just went through a couple months ago. So that was really cool. I had the opportunity to, with some other partners, take down 104 units in Louisville, Kentucky that we syndicated out. That has been a really cool asset too. So kind of the take home of my strategy that has been like happy accident is how can I buy something that I don't have a ton of outside risk? How do I mitigate the risk before I even get into it, right? So we didn't have a rehab thing that we needed to do on the 104 unit. So it was easier to get streamlined early.
Yeah. What other risks are you looking to minimize?
The primary one is I have been concerned about like debt, the debt market for some time. So the 53 unit and the 38, well, the 53 unit and the 104 unit, we have on 3-ish% loans that are amortized over 40 years. And they're on 15 and 12-year loans respectively. So if you can lock in your debt, then real estate gets very forgiving if and only if you don't run out of money and you can ride it out for a while, you know?
Right.
And so if you can lock in that debt to put you in a position to be able to do that, that largest piece of the risk is mitigated.
Yeah.
In my
The
opinion.
financing portion. Yep. Wow, crazy. The fact that you had a 3% interest rate is like now to be admired.
Well, and we still have it,
I
and it's
know.
assumable, right? So these types of loans, or some of these types of loans, you can structure it so that it becomes assumable. So if I sell that property, I can sell it with the loan if the acquiring team meets the criteria. So think about that. Like the 3.2% rate loan on a ton of money is almost an asset unto itself, you know?
Right.
So, like, anyway, that is, in my
Yeah.
opinion, the largest risk. The construction piece has been a really large risk, and then the location of an asset. I've seen people go into, a secondary market, I don't think that big of a deal, but a tertiary market, like a population 1,000 place where you're going to buy a 20-unit apartment complex, that is a little scary to me. So location matters.
Yeah, yeah. So you have a pretty large portfolio. What exists in your total portfolio?
I had to do the math the other day. I think I'm at 373.
Okay. And is that
Yeah. So
mostly
total
apartment
units
buildings?
inclusive of everything. It's
Sorry, is that
mostly
mostly
apartments. It's
apartments?
mostly B class. Yeah, it is. It's mostly B class workforce housing type stuff. I did get very enthralled because of GoBundance, was seeing all these women that were absolutely crushing it in short-term rentals. And the types of revenue you can bring in from a short-term rental is exponential in comparison to long-term rentals. So I got super enamored with it and ended up taking down an 18-unit motel that with a friend who had a lot of experience with short-term rental. Like I know the small multi space, she knows the short-term rental space, and we put a really cool rehab on it. And it basically they were getting like $20-ish a night for this motel. Like in peak season, we ended up getting well over 100.
Wow.
So I think this type of a play. It's very interesting, where it's very far from where we live. So we are entertaining selling it, even though the cash flow is poised for being pretty fantastic. But it's been a really cool experience being a part of it.
Very cool. Yeah, that's exciting. So what's the vibe? What's the vibe you guys were going for when you rehabbed it?
Oh, we actually literally called it the fisherman chic.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Vibe. Yeah, so we did a lot of like the big red and black buffalo plaid and just everything very clean and comfy, and they're really good linen, so it's a comfortable night's sleep. They're really good towels, so you can take a hot shower after being on the lake. But the bulk of the people we've had stay with us at Outdoors Inn at Balsam Lake are people who their friends have a cabin that will sleep like 10, but they've invited 15, right? So now where do the extra 5 sleep? Well, we have this option that's reasonable and comfortable just around the corner. So
Right.
that it's been neat to get to fill that need.
Awesome. Okay, so it sounds like bulk of your portfolio, multifamily space, and now more recently, short-term rentals, hospitality, really, getting into the
Yeah.
hospitality space. Very cool. Um, I'd love to do like a deep dive on one of your projects, whichever comes to
Okay.
mind. If you can kind of talk us through from beginning to end how you thought about it and how you found it, how you financed it, and etc., that would be fantastic.
Sure. I feel like the most instructive would be that 53 unit because it was into this much larger space. Because if you've done a single family home, it's not a huge like mental leap to think about doing a fourplex. But the thing I'd like to chat a little bit about is that it's not a huge mental leap to go from a 4 unit to a 50 potentially.
Nice.
So I feel like one of my primary business partner in multifamily is a commercial broker in Chicago. And I mean, just looking at all of the work that commercial brokers do, they're continually reaching out to potential sellers and trying to get them to be interested in selling. I also kind of feel like that since like this huge boom in multifamily investment has kind of hit the fan in the last few years, because so many people are interested in buying apartments now than 10 years ago. If you own a 20-unit apartment building or more, like you pretty much know that you should get it listed with a broker and you don't want to sell it. Like you're not going to respond to the chances are you're far more likely to go to a broker than to respond to somebody who sent you a postcard, right? So we have decided to kind of cut out that middleman and, pay the broker exactly what they have earned by getting us to a seller that's ready to sell. So that is what we found in Indianapolis. The Cushman Wakefield Group ends up handling the vast majority of all transactions. So they had a listing of this 53 unit, which was a repositioned assisted living facility that was positioned into 1-bedroom apartments. So it was a beautiful new rehab. We didn't have the risk of construction because it had already been completed. We had proof of what types of rents we'd be able to get because it had been leased up. And because of that, we were able to pursue the permanent financing of Fannie Mae, right? These government loans, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, that are basically, it's referred to as agency debt for listeners who might not have heard of it before. So we put permanent financing on it from the beginning, and then we're able to do, I love a value add strategy that doesn't feel risky, right? So if you're gonna say, oh, well, I think this unit should bring in $700 instead of $500 because we're going to update the appliances. Well, you don't know that for sure, right?
Yeah.
You do know for sure that like if you are not charging a pet rent and the place next door is charging a pet rent, that the minute you start charging a pet rent, you're going to increase your NOI. So I like these no-brainer NOI ads. Like, can I bill back? If everybody else is billing back for their water, then if I bill back my water, my NOI changes for the better. Things like that are value adds that I'm interested in.
Very cool. And so what it looks like it was already rehab before you acquired it. What were some of the value adds that you guys brought in?
So we started charging for parking if you had a second car. One spot was included, a second spot would cost you a fee. There was a pet fee and a pet rent that we started to employ. There is a basement on site, so we toyed with the idea of like a laundromat type situation, but there's one down the block. And we also toyed with the idea of having storage facilities, but we, chose to use it as storage for ourselves. So just, with the bill back and the pet rent, we have, and we're able to capture on just signing new leases, we're able to capture a 7% increase year over year for this year. So nice. It's a good looking asset that people want to live in, but primarily because it already looked good and we found a market and a sub-market that made a ton of sense. And we went in, we underwrote enough things that we knew when we saw something of value. And then we were able to move quickly because we didn't question our principles. We set our principles and we didn't waver from them.
Yeah, amazing. So the financing, can you speak a little bit more about how you structured the deal? Did you bring in investors? Was it primarily your own financing plus the leverage? Or can you speak a little bit more about that?
Sure. So my primary goal in investing in multifamily, if you look at like the all multifamily investors, like the leads of deals, like there's the pack, like the vast majority of people that are buying larger multifamily, they're syndicating out, right? But if you look at the leaders, the billionaires, those guys buy and hold for their own accounts, right? So I made a decision very early on that I don't want to mimic the pack as much as I want to mimic the leaders, right? So I joined arms with a couple of investors on this one specifically. There's three of us total in the deal. We used our own capital and were able to take it down, just the three of us, with the business plan of buying and holding to mimic the billionaire group rather than the pack of syndicators, because we now have it locked down on this better loan, and we're not worried about a reinvestment risk, right? So the deals that went full cycle, a thing not a lot of people talk about is you're going to have this lump of cash, yes, but then what do you do with it? Now deals have dried up completely, and you're going to get a 9% loan quote. What do you do? So you have to think about the long term if you're, going to follow the leaders.
Yeah, very cool. I love that. I love that philosophy that, let's not follow the pack, let's follow the leader. That's awesome. And so how is it performing today? What's the occupancy? And yeah.
We are, I think 100% leased up. I think we have one move out. Like wow. The management of this asset takes 20 minutes a month. It's a call with our property manager that, we're able to say, okay, how are things going? There's been problems with the gates. Well, how is the basement? Those types of things, and just get the recaps. It's the craziest thing. The bigger you go, the easier it gets. That being said, though, that if you go to one of these boot camps where you learn to must buy multifamily, must look at 100 units, or nothing smaller matters, I only want 100 units, that is true, because you can afford a payroll to have someone whose eyes are on your asset every single day. But a thing that I figured out, or that our team figured out through this, is yes, we can't afford a one person full time, but we can buy that person's time every single week for 2 or 3 days. So it might take 24 hours for your thing to get looked at as a tenant, but that same person is going to be able to know that, oh, I need to look at this and I need to check the gate and all of those things. So you get the same benefit, you just look at it in a slightly different way.
Very cool. Yeah. Great perspective. Tell me a little bit about, so you've had experience in multifamily and now hospitality, like give us like a side-by-side of like how these two types of, I guess, investments or asset classes have kind of, or stack up next to each other in terms of financials, in terms of like, the management of the individual operations. Like how do you stack them up against each other?
So you're going to make way more money on the short-term rental side, but it's also a managing people business. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more moving pieces, and in terms of the management, you can kind of set it and forget it on the long-term rental side and have these 20-minute conversations, and then that's plenty, right? But on the short-term side, like you really have to dial into your team and really make sure that you're spending your pennies wisely, because just like in multifamily, every dollar of NOI means like $10 or $20 of valuation, right? Mm-hmm. So it's very important that you are spending your pennies correctly, because the value of the property changes drastically based off of ill-spent dollars.
Right. Yeah. More risk, more reward, I guess.
Exactly. Well put.
Very cool. Any like advice for, which to pursue and differences in how you approach the type of investment?
Yeah. My whole ethos on investing is the thing I run after every single day, all day, is that I call it my forever money bucket, right? It's a bucket of assets that are going to pay me every single month forever, which is my ideally multifamily on long-term loans that are on this non-recourse debt. That is the ultimate forever money bucket item. But if you're doing that in joint venture and you have to invest 100,000, 200,000 at a clip, you're going to run out of money pretty quick, right? So in order to fill up that bucket, you have to also have an engine for cash flow. And my engine for cash flow used to be a healthy W-2. And then I left that so that I could spend more time on real estate and with my son, right? But now, like, that's what the motel was intended to be a part of. Serving as CEO of GoBundace Women is another engine for cash flow that helps me, do work I love, but also then be able to put dollars into that forever money bucket. So if you can't find a deal worth doing for the forever money bucket, you have to think about something that's going to help get you there. I will say that I repositioned a unit of a sixplex, one of my very early acquisitions. I repositioned one unit into a furnished rental, and I mostly rent it out to like traveling executives, many traveling nurses as well, that, I only handle people coming in or coming out every 60 days or so. That brain damage is nothing compared to a short-term rental, but the returns are very similar. So if you don't have the bandwidth to do a short-term rental, then consider doing something for that's more midterm, that's more like a month-ish rental.
Awesome. Thank you for that perspective. Any other advice that you could share with the audience around just maybe less of like the business acumen and the analytical thinking around deal assessment evaluation, and more around mindset? Like, what goes into like getting rid of that fear of being able to take down a 53 unit building? Like, how do you think about that? How do you set yourself up for success?
Girl, knowing in advance that it's going to be hard, knowing in advance that you're going to have to work through some conversations in your head, like that is thing number one. Like thinking that people who go do stuff that you want to do are just, oh no, they're just braver than me. They're different than me. They're smarter than, I ain't smarter than no one. I'm a farm kid from small town Illinois. Just, it's like if you had kids, like the minute you know the things that are going to be difficult, like about the first 90 days, like you're prepared and you can mitigate that hard around it, right? So if you can start to surround yourself with people who did the thing that you want to do, that is, in my opinion, step number one, because it gave me the bravery to take big steps, to do bigger things, to, oh wait, your company's worth $12 billion. I'm thinking really small that this $4 million thing is the scariest thing I've ever done. Like it's all relative. Every problem is relative. And the more you can get next to people who are doing things bigger than you and the same as you want to do, the easier it is to adopt a mindset that you're going to be able to move forward with realizing those dreams. But do not fool yourself. Everybody who is brave is still scared. They just do it anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, that's so amazing. It's like that when you think about like the 5 people that you surround yourself with, like what level are they on mindset wise, and then you got to kind of adjust to where you want to be. Awesome.
Exactly.
What are your long-term goals? I mean, you've got GoBundance now. You've got a pretty solid portfolio in real estate. Like what's next? What are you thinking?
That is the most difficult question, because so much of my investing time frame, I wanted to be the mom who got to go volunteer at my kids' school. And now I get to do that. And I wanted to be someone who got to like impact other lives. Like I really feel like you're given 2 arms for a reason, right? One, to lift yourself up, but the other to remember to lift up people behind you. And I've had the chance to do that, like coaching girls volleyball, and like now getting a chance to kind of be a peer to all these women doing incredible things at GoBundance. I mean, I need to do some work around what is next, because serving these women is the thing that matters most to me right now.
Very cool. I love that arm analogy, by the way. I'm going to use that again. I love it. Oh, that's so cool. I mean, I'm so excited for you. It just seems like such a fulfilling role to play, you know? So very, very happy for you to take that on and run with it. Anything else? Any closing comments, advice for listeners who are trying to, you know, reach success in whatever they're doing, whether it's personal goals, professional goals, you know, how to just stay in that like higher frequency day in, day out?
One thing that I would love to say is, if you are a highly motivated person, if you're listening to The Gentle Art of Crushing It, it's because you are someone who wants to go crush it, right? So I crushed it in medical device sales. And I realized after a decade and a half or more that the ladder I was climbing was against the wrong wall. So if you are going to put blood, sweat, tears, effort, thought, sleepless nights into anything, make sure whatever wall you are climbing a ladder on, that ladder is against the right wall. Begin with the end in mind and then get to work.
You know, I feel like you should just like maybe write a book about your analogies, because I love every single one of them. Like, that is so good. So good. I love it.
I mean, it's only because I've screwed it up, you know, like I feel like the only advice that anybody can give, like, especially like me, is like the only stuff that you should absolutely trust me on is something that I screwed it up and then had to fix it. And I screwed that up, you know?
That's where the learning comes from. I love it. I love it.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. This was so amazing. I cannot wait for CEO GoBundace Women, Mandy McAllister. Looking forward to that. And tell us like where people can get in touch with you if they want to contact you directly, and where can they find GoBundace Women?
Yep. The very best way to get in touch with me, the catch-all for all the stuff that I do, is mandymcallister.com, MandyMcAllister.com, or it's GoBundace Women, GoBundance women.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mandy. Best of luck and million more successes to come for you. I'm very excited, and thank you for being with us today.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. It was an amazing episode. We know we sure learned a lot, and we hope you did as well. We want to take a second and thank you so much for viewing or listening to this episode. And please just know that we only ask for one favor, and that is to make this life magnificent. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.